We have an excellent yogi with us who is representing the wonderful lineage, I think, which taught yoga to this world for the century. So we are so happy that we have with us Yogacharya Dr Kausthub Desikachar with us. Namaste and welcome, Anna, for this show today. It's a pleasure, privilege to have you with us here.
Namaste, namaste.
And I'm sure with the current yoga season going on, with the International Day of Yoga, just we have, I think the countdown have started for the day, and you must be busy in attending a lot of programs, lot of teachings, and in spite of it, you could take some time, and I'm so happy for that. So how is the yoga season? How is the yoga season this year, 2020, compared to the previous years, because of the lockdown and Corona and a lot of things are going on? So how do you look at the yoga season now?
It's Namaste, Subbu, and Namaste, everybody, for this wonderful interaction. I've been watching a few of them that you have conducted. It's really remarkable to hear some of these wonderful people from all over India. I am so happy that I am the number 20th in the list, because this year 2020 is fantastic, because it has almost destroyed everybody's business in the whole world in every field, including, I think, in yoga, because so many yoga schools are closing, so many yoga studios are closing, so many yoga teachers have become desperate. So in a way, this has been a very challenging year for many people. At the same time, what I have seen is many people have somehow, especially from India and Indian Yoga Association, many of us, we have somehow kept connection with many of our students through the social and digital media platforms, and this has brought us together much more closer than perhaps it would have been if we had not had this pandemic. So in one way, I'm very grateful, because we have been very connected, but in another way, I feel also a bit sad and challenged, because so many of the world's economic activities have been affected. But I don't believe it's only because of the coronavirus situation. The corona is like a cover, because there is already a global recession that is coming, already started last year. And somehow now there is something to blame. The coronavirus is to blame. But of course, it's not really the coronavirus that started these economic challenges, but we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it. And I think humanity is strong and stubborn, so we can overcome this and patiently. And I think those of us who will survive this crisis will thrive very well after that.
And unlike the previous years, we are not having any mass yoga events and public events and everything. We are going too much of online events that we are able to organize. And in a way, it's an advantage, as you rightly said, we are able to get more connected with more people. Being at one place, we are able to reach out to many places. I think that's the power of the ancient yogis who had, like Agastya and other people. They were sitting at one place. Physically, they were there, but they were able to do the astral travel and all, to go to the Himalayas or even other places. Sometimes they were able to get into the other's body also, kind of siddhis that they had. So I think this time, if not in a yogic way, but technology is taking us to different parts of the world by being where we are, and world is coming together. So now I know you are representing a great lineage of yoga parampara, which is in fact, which brought yoga in the right classical form to this 21st century, I would say. Your grandfather, Yogi Krishnamacharya, is looked upon as a father of the modern renaissance of yoga, and not literally the modern yoga, which is happening today, the power yoga and all those things. But in this modern times, he who brought the traditional yoga from Himalayas and all those things to common man, and all his illustrious disciples, your father Krishnamacharya Desikachar, BKS Iyengarji, and the Mysore Patabi Joy's school, and Indra Devi, all these disciples of Krishnamacharya are one who pioneered this movement. And today we are seeing the third generation that you all are leading to. So in the scenario that we are doing a lot of this technological online yoga and all those things, how would you look at if your grandfather would have been there today in 2020, would have been approving this online yoga and all that we are doing today?
Difficult to say. I want to say a couple of things. Actually, I think we have to acknowledge about 4 or 5 great masters uh, in the 1900s as some people, as the, I would say the giants of yoga who really brought yoga to every person. My grandfather is one of them. We also have others like Swami Kovalayananda, Swami Shivananda, Yogendra ji, and also Swami Vivekananda as well, who these, I would say that these were about 4 or 5 masters who really were powerful human beings who brought yoga to the public in a way that we probably cannot imagine one of us to do, because that was a very mammoth task. Now, having said that, the second part of your question, whether he would approve something like that, I have a feeling that he would, in the sense, in a limited manner, because uh, one of the problems is that there are too many events now and it's too easy to do events now. In the beginning of March, I thought the world was having one pandemic, the corona pandemic. But now I feel that there is not only a pandemic, but also an epidemic along with it, which is how many digital webinars and seminars are there that is exploded like the coronavirus. There is just everybody who is just doing so many events. So, and that's why I'm saying my grandfather or certain traditional yogis would probably have approved it in a limited manner, because what they would have approved is quality events, but for a very short time, because otherwise we are just sitting in front of the computer too much and it becomes very tamasic and also rajasic, because there is so much vibrations that the technology is emitting, so it would not be very healthy. So they would have approved it in a limited way because they are also very practical people. They understand the challenges that circumstances like the pandemic would bring. I'm very sure about this.
Of course, as you say, yoga always says the moderation, yukta hara, yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasuhu. So everything that we do should be in the moderation, is what Krishna tells in the Gita also. So I think that is the way we need to take it. Actually, we get, actually people literally remember that we all exist only when this yoga day comes, thanks to Bodhiji. For the past 1 week, people from various universities and various places keep calling us. Can you do a webinar for us? Can you join for a e-conference and all those things? I think yoga is not for one day. We need to, keep it doing for all the days. That world should also remember. So that was nice to know from you that, even Krishnamacharya was not kind of only a fundamentalist who would not approve this kind of modern things, but with limitation is what a wonderful thing that you could learn from you. Also, you have been a wonderful author and you have documented the beautiful biography of Sri Krishnamacharya, your beloved grandfather. It is, like you have been in the family, you have, been brought up there. So you very well are the most relevant person to tell it to us. So in a time, in his time, he is somebody who crossed the, 100, the century. And in his initial time, when he came to this, the scenario changed. But in his initial time, Krishnamacharya was in a traditional Orthodox Vaishnava background, wherein, the teaching of yoga to all common people would not have been that easily accepted, especially to women, to foreigners today. You are somebody who travels around the globe and reaches to people everywhere, every part of country. So in those days, it would not have been that easy for, Krishnamacharya. Even if you'd have done that, would have been looked as upon, come on, kind of either a revolution by some people who would welcome it. Some people would look upon it as a kind of sin that he is doing. So what was the challenges in his initial days that, Yogi Krishnamacharya would have faced, and how in his life he overcame that? A bit of back to the roots, Kausthubji.
Well, I don't know if I can answer this from a first-hand point of view, because I was born when my grandfather was already in his 80s. So I don't know first-hand information about
No, but at least you have heard from him.
Yeah,
You heard from your father.
I've heard a lot from my father mainly, and also from my grandmother some stories, and my grandfather very little he speaks about himself. But I think the bigger problem for my grandfather was not about this kind of thing like breaking the tradition and teaching to everybody and all that, but actually the bigger problem was that in the time in the 1920s and 30s, India was ruled by the British already for a long time. And the British had systematically somehow overpowered traditional systems. So things like yoga and Ayurveda, on the one hand, were somehow losing popularity because they were replacing it with, like, let's say, the Western medicine and other things which are much more easier for people to embrace. Because the thing about Western medicine is you don't have to assume responsibility for your illness. You just pop a pill and you continue your lifestyle. I mean, a lot of diabetics, they eat the sugar, then they pop the pill. They eat the sugar, then they pop the pill. They don't have to take responsibility. Whereas in traditional systems like yoga and Ayurveda, the responsibility is a lot on the human being. So there was a dark era for yoga and Ayurveda in these times. And that's why what these masters that I talked about, the 545 masters, what they did was remarkable. That was a major challenge. But the other challenge also is the opposite, which is that, see, yoga and Ayurveda and other traditions, they were not, the traditional approach was not to go after students like many yoga masters and teachers are doing now all over the world. They are going after the student. They had to wait for the students to come to them. So this combined with the fact that yoga and Ayurveda were actually going on a decline because of the popularization or the rise of the Western systems posed a great challenge, because it cut down the demand for traditional knowledge systems. And that is the biggest challenge I think Acharya Krishnamacharya faced, much more than whether he had to teach women or he had to teach the public. And these are all very simple things, because if you look really into the Shastras, very ancient Shastras, yoga was not at all excluded for women. We have examples like Gargi, Maitreyi, Parvati, and many other people who are doing yoga as women. So it's not really something that he broke with the tradition. He probably broke with the times, but not with the tradition. So I would say that that was the bigger challenge, to bring back a tradition that was kind of dying alive again in the eyes of people who are somehow looking the other direction. And we all know that the grass is always greener on the other side. So something that is new, like, oh, Western system of medicine, especially which appears like a magic, because all you have to do is to take a pill and then you feel better. It feels like magic. That's much more appealing. So that was a bit of a struggle. And that's why, even though he was very well educated, he suffered a lot from poverty because students were not coming. And he would not break that rule of going after students. He never did that. So that is the big struggle.
Wow. His journey, started from, I think, Mysore, and going up to Manasarovar, learning from his yoga guru. Even when he went there, he was almost one of the greatest scholars in terms of Vedic knowledge, Sanskritam, and all those things. So why did he choose yoga when he had already the kind of the path of the Sanskritam and Vedic knowledge, in which he was one of the greatest learned in that young age in those days itself? So how did his interest in yoga, which came up for Krishnamacharya?
You mean interest, or you mean his choice that he became a yoga teacher? Because there are two different questions.
Yeah, I just want to ask, how did his interest came up in the field of yoga, that he went in search of his guru to the Himalayas and got it all?
I think this is because in already in the parampara, we have great yoga masters in the past, all the way back to Nathamuni, because we belong to the lineage of Yogi Nathamuni. So when my grandfather was very young, my grandfather's father was a very well educated man, but from a very simple, humble family. And my grandfather's mother was coming from a wealthier family. But when my grandfather was very young, my grandfather's father, that is my great grandfather, gave him a little Ramayana book and said, "This is your only wealth. Don't go after your mother's family's wealth." We still have that Ramayana book in that bureau, in that shelf behind me. It's there along with many other things. And that's something that was somehow made a deep impression on my grandfather. Around 16 or 17, when he was about 16 years of age, he had this vision of Nathamuni, who somehow, like you talked about the cloud, downloaded the teachings of Yoga Rahasya to him. And that, I think, sparked his real deep interest in yoga. And he wanted to learn yoga from the best teachers. So when he finished his experience in the Alvar Tirunagari with Nathamuni, he came back to Parakala Matha in Mysore, and then he heard that he had to go to Varanasi to educate himself with various degrees. And that is when he went to Varanasi and he studied different things, among which he studied Yoga Shastra with a man called Ganganath Jha. Ganganath Jha is also somebody who wrote a commentary on the Yoga Sutra. We also have a digital copy of that book, which he wrote only because it is lost now. And Ganganath Jha saw the great potential in my grandfather and told him, "You go to Mount Kailash. There is a man named Rama Mohana Brahmachari. Go and learn yoga from him seriously." So that is when Krishnamacharya went there and stayed there for about 7.5 years in this Manasarovar region to learn with Rama Mohana Brahmachari. And at the end of their education, when it was time for Acharya Krishnamacharya to leave, in those days there was Guru Dakshina. They did not pay the fees in advance like nowadays. They are paying at the end of the study. The Guru will say what they have to pay. And so when the time came for him to leave, he asked Ramamohana Brahmachari, "Sir, what is the Guru Dakshina I have to give you?" So Ramamohana Brahmachari said, "The only Guru Dakshina I want is two things. One, you start a family and have children. And second, you do yoga prachara. You spread the message of yoga." So that is why Acharya Krishnamacharya gave up all the other possibilities to be a Yogacharya. Twice he was invited to be the Parakalamata Swami, because in our ancestry, our ancestor are the Parakalamata Swami. So we have that moral obligation as well to be the Parakala Swami. So if my grandfather got that, it was a Nimantrana, an offer that he could not refuse. But he could refuse it only because he had given that word as a Guru Dakshina to his teacher that he will be a Yogacharya, not anything else. So that is why he made that commitment to yoga, giving up all the other things.
Something it's very interesting to know that 7.5 years he had stayed there in the Manasarovar, the Kailash, and such place. Because nowadays people think if they go and do a 1-month course and come back, they are so-called yogis, yogacharyas, and everything. But the tapasya that
today, if we ask people to come for a 1-month course, sometimes they say it's too long. Make it shorter. No time, sir. People don't want to invest the time, but they want all the credit.
In fact, that is where in one of the Ayush series of talks which is going on in this evening Ayush talks with the great yoga gurus, Sri Prashant Iyengar, BK's Iyengar's son, when he has been speaking, he has said, you are creating more of so-called yoga teachers, but you should aim at creating more yoga sishyas, students to learn and follow, lead that in the life. Then becoming a teacher happens eventually. So when they all learned, Sri Krishnamacharya, Desikachar, all when they learned, it is not for, with the aim that they want to become a teacher. They learned for imbibing in their life and, being that, leading that yogic life. And as their guru gave Agnya, as his guru gave him the Agnya that you should go and do yoga prachar. So as a guru, Dakshina that they started, but today when somebody comes, I'm very sure you are somebody leading in the field of yoga today in the contemporary scenario. You have students from all over. When somebody comes today, he already comes with his domain registered, with this business registered, the yoga studio very ready. After keeping all those, then he comes to do the yoga. So how do you see this modern scenario today? And how do you are somebody who is kind of a bridge between the traditional wisdom and the modern scenario of yoga today? That's what I look at Kausthubji as. So as being a bridge between the ancient and modern, today, how do you look at this current scenario in contrast with what was your grandfather's and father's time?
See, I look at that era as the golden era. That's the golden era of modern yoga, and it is very, very difficult to get that same era nowadays because the attitudes and other things of people have changed, and we have to embrace this. So, what I always tell my students and what I try to live by my example is that the kind of student you are, that's the kind of students you will attract.
Very.
So if you are one of those teachers who want to just learn a little bit and teach immediately, you will get students who will only want to learn a little bit from you and then go somewhere else for some other learning. Whereas if you are a teacher who stands very firmly as a student for all your life, continuing to learn and spread the best in-depth knowledge, then you will get the students who are coming to you for the depth of knowledge, for the nectar. So what you are is what the people will get attracted to. See, even in my own school, in my own work, there are all kinds of people who come, but those who remain are those who reflect my values. That if I want to study something, if I felt to study something, any field, I would like to go deep. I don't like to go superficial wide. I don't want to try different things. I want to go deep in my learning. And that is what I offer to my students. So those who remain are those people who want that depth of knowledge. So that is the advice I give to all my students. What choices you make defines who you are, and that will be the mirror for who will come to you. That's the most important thing. You are your certification, not anything else. This is what I believe in.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think there's a lot, the younger generation should learn in this perspective, what you have presented. You are the mirror of what you learn. It's a beautiful message, I think, on this eve of the yoga day that when we are talking. And before, I'm sure you had a lot of learning from your yogic father. But before that, because you also had the fortunate time with your grandfather also, for a long time. So did you learn yoga from Yogacharya Krishnamacharya also, from the grandfather, who is, the guru of Desikachar and BK Iyengar and all people? Did you have any chance of practicing yoga with him?
It all depends on how you are defining what is yoga. Now, if you are defining yoga as asana practice, that is something I did not learn from my grandfather. However, if you define yoga as inclusive of many other things, which include something like mantra, abhyasa, etc., that is something that my grandfather taught me, because I was initiated to the Yajnopavita by my grandfather.
Wow.
So he taught me the Gayatri mantra, and we started studying the Amara Kosha, etc., very, very young. And so there has been somehow some grace from him that has come to me. But my Acharya is my father, Desikacharya. I don't consider Krishnamacharya as my Acharya. I consider him as my Acharya's Acharya, because my Acharya is my father. But I have received some influences of yoga teachings from my grandfather as well. And that I am always very grateful for.
And definitely, but some good kind of time that you had with the grandfather, right? So what is that which is something which you cherish? This is the most wonderful time that always you try to recollect from the memories of being with such a legendary Yogacharya.
So many nice memories I have with my grandfather. I mean, I shared some time ago about my first memory with my grandfather on one of the talks on Facebook as well, where I remember the first oldest memory I have is I heard a ringing of bells in the night, and I wake up and I follow that sound, and it is very early in the morning, and my grandfather is already doing his puja around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And My brother is sitting with him. This is the first memory I have of my grandfather. But there are many other memories of my grandfather. My grandfather used to take me, my brother, and my sister in a rickshaw to from where I am living in Mandavali to a place called Mailapur, where there was a fruit market, and we would all go with him on the rickshaw to buy the fruits. He would always go to the same shopkeeper because that was his loyalty. There was about commitment. And another fantastic, funny incident I remember is one time I was not listening to my father so much, and my father was kind of a little bit mad with me, as every parent will do when I was a young boy. And so I run to my grandfather for protection. And my father comes in, my father is like screaming at me and telling my grandfather all the things that I did wrong and that I'm not listening to my father's advice and things like that. So I remember my grandfather responding to my father says, at his age, were you listening to me? So you don't have the authority to fight with him. So you shut up. So you keep quiet. So this was like a typical what a grandfather would do. So we all
Exactly.
people look at him as an Acharya, but for me, he was also a very nice and protective grandfather.
Wonderful. And yes, of course, as you rightly said, your Acharya has been the father. You know, not every, though we all look at our gurus also as the father, when the father himself becomes the guru, I think that is something extraordinary. You know, it's something like in the Vedic tradition, we see the Bhrigu Varna Samvada in the, Taitriya Kosha, we see, Bhrigu is talking to his father, who is Varuna, who is also his guru. The Panchakosha Viveka comes out from that. So you today, are here as a Yogacharya that you have learned from your guru and father. And tomorrow, 21st of June, happens to be the Janma Divas, the birthday of Sri Desikachar sir as well. So in this eve of his Janma Divas, what would you like to tell about Desikachar as your father, Desikachar as your guru?
It's a lot. It's a lot of things to say because in some way, as a father and as a teacher, I've been very blessed that I don't have two different people. I don't have a separation of the two, and this is how it was traditionally. In the Vedic Shastra, an Acharya is really the one who initiates you into mantra. The one who initiates you into mantra is an Acharya. And normally in the traditional times, the father was initiating the Gayatri mantra to the person when they had the Yajñopavita. So the father was the first Acharya for everybody in the past. So somehow this got lost in the modern era where the priest is initiating the mantra, not the fathers. And so there's a little bit of separation. But I was lucky to have my Acharya and my father as one and the same. And very often there would be very fascinating situations because when I was first of all interested in yoga, to study yoga, seriously, not very young, but when I was about 19 or 20, when I finished my university and I wanted to give up my job, I was working in the Murugappa group and I wanted to give up that job and be a yoga teacher. The first thing my father says, don't do it. Are you sure? Don't do it because it's going to be very hard life. So in some way, as a father, he was very protective. But the moment I passed all his tests and accepted to be a yoga student and be a yoga teacher, trained to be a yoga teacher, he was very, very, very tough with me because he wanted to train me to be the best representative of the tradition as possible. This is because he also was put through the same kind of training because there's one thing which we all have to understand. A teacher may have many students. But one of the great jobs of the responsibilities of a teacher is to find that person who will succeed them and train them, who will represent them. For them, they will put them through very different standards. So that was unfortunately me at that time. Now, fortunately, me, because I feel very fortunate about it. But that time it was so hard and so tough. And sometimes I would even wonder what happened to my father. He disappeared. Because the way he would teach other people was very kind and very compassionate and very easy and very gentle. Whereas the way he would teach me was so strict, so difficult. And even sometimes my sister was not taught the same way as me, because he did not see her as that role that I would take. So it was very, very tough at that time, but I'm very grateful that it was very tough. But as we had these funny situations of being both a father and a teacher to me, sometimes when I would go with a problem to him, he would ask me, do you want the answer as a father or as a teacher? Are you approaching me as a father or as a teacher? And depending on how I answer, he would either answer me as a father would do, or if I say teacher, he would always take me to the classroom where he would teach the classes of yoga, and only there take that seat. Then usually recite one chanting of Sahana Vavatu or something, so that we assume the teacher student role, then only he would answer that question. So sometimes, even for a simple question that I would ask, he would ask me which role that I'm asking in, and that he would choose appropriately that role and answer that. Those were very fascinating things. And for me, my father is the greatest hero in my life, because he did so much without expecting anything in return from any of his students. Anybody, and even people who did not meet him, he touched his life. And his contribution to yoga is immeasurable. And he would give up everything to help people who were in trouble. I remember one time there was a function where he was going to be given an award ceremony, and I had to drive him to the award ceremony. And as I was driving from our school, somebody called and said, sir, one sick person will come. He wants to meet you because he is very sick. My father just told me, you go to the award ceremony, collect the award in behalf of me. I will go attend this too. That was his commitment to the yoga and to help his people. And that is what I admire about him. He gave without expectation. And sometimes there are so many students who only took from him, never gave anything back. And such people are also still in the field of yoga. Even now, some of his Indian students also, they took so much from him. But when my father needed some help in the last stages of his life, they never showed up to even support him or even look at him at that time. That is what sometimes makes me a bit sad, because even some Indian teachers and students who claim publicly that they are my father's students, they did not behave as father's students. That's the great sadness I have.
You know what has happened to all great teachers. It was Jesus, the Christ, it could be, or Buddha, it could be, or even Sri Krishna, it could be. So always, that is how I think that is the fate of the destiny that life has been. And as the Veda says, Tyage naikena amritatva manashahu. So this Tyaga, what they do, is what making them to stand, Though at their times they had difficult times, but over the times, time changes. You said how even Yogacharya Krishnamacharya had the troubles of poverty at his time. Slowly it improved, and today times have changed, and many people just with their names, as you rightly said, just their names, they are in the field of yoga. Maybe whether the knowledge that they have got or not, but using such people's, the gurus' names, many are flourishing today. I think that is the flow of life, how it happens.
But a true student is also called a chhatra. A chhatra is that student who is always protecting the teacher, who never lets down the teacher. And another name for the student is called Antevasina, the one who stays till the very end. When my father breathed his last, it was me who in my room and three of my students who were in my room, not my father's students. That's the sad thing. It was me and three of my students, not my father's students. But as you rightly say, times have changed. I don't hold this as a grudge against anybody. But like I said to you earlier, that's the kind of students they will attract, because karma will take care of itself.
Very nice to hear all those memories. Today we are on the eve of his Sir's Jayanti. So nice to hear the wonderful, the yogic life, that extraordinary sense of selflessness that he had. That is what he, being the son of successor of such a, great yogi, who left even what could have, imagine today the post of being a Jagat Guru, of being a Matadipati is something where, it's not just about tapasya and everything, but it is looked upon as a kind of honor also. So he had relinquished that, he had left that to become the Yogacharya. And being a Yogacharya in today's scenario, what we see Kausthub Desikachar as a Yogacharya in the field of yoga, we have all worldwide reach. What you have today was not the scenario. It is not for that what, the great master had done. So that is how the Tyaga life has brought them all today. So we see the fruit of it today. The world, it could be the yoga day or whatever it is happening. It's all the tapasya that those great masters have done. And we are happy that you are continuing the wonderful, lineage. That is more important.
I will clarify one thing. I don't look at myself as a Yogacharya. I never claim to be a Yogacharya. I am a permanent student of yoga, and of course I teach some others, but I will never have the audacity to call myself a Yogacharya just yet. I don't feel that that is something that I can say about myself. But maybe time and history will decide what happens, what name comes in front of me, whether it's a Yogacharya or some other title which may not necessarily be positive. We don't know. That only time will tell. But I don't claim to be already a Yogacharya or a Jagat Guru or anything. I just guide my students who come to me. And I am a permanent learner. I really love to study the Shastras.
That is so humble of you, but we know, the kind of, the value that you carry in the field of yoga, being in the lineage of such great masters. And also, like, I want to ask you, you said that learning from your father, the guru, was not that very easy. Like he, would have been in treating the other students a different way, but because he knew that you are the chosen one. So the that he gave was that the task that he gave you was quite different, but also by means of your education, the conventional education, you had been an alumnus of Pitts Pilani, having your dual master's degree there and all those things. So when it came to the point, then when you had to take up the teaching of yoga full time, so how did you decide to do this? Whether yesterday when we were talking with Subbu Tiwari ji, he had the law practice which he was doing and all those things. So between that and choosing yoga, it was an eventual practice which he slowly took it from Shri Tiwari ji and all. So likewise, how did it happen? This transition of you, how did it happen? Though you had yoga right from the childhood days, it was very much part of your life. It was not separate for you. Like unlike we people have to go somewhere to learn. It was at household. You were grown up with the where you breathed in yoga, I would say, where you were brought up in yoga, you ate yoga, you lived yoga there. That is different. But when it comes to the matter of full time taking a career in yoga, how did you choose this? Was it like because you were the grandson of Krishnamacharya, where because you are the son of Desikachar that you took it, or you also because eventually you understood the value that you have, the traditional wisdom that you got by the family, you accepted it?
There's kind of like different stages. When I was very young, already like 8-9 years old, when my grandmother died in 1984, I remember B.K. Sengar, who is my grandmother's younger brother, came home and the family members came home. Already at this time, people like B.K. Sengar were telling me that, in the future, you have to carry the teaching of yoga and things like that. I remember already B.K. Sengar saying that, and many other family members were saying that. So in the beginning, actually, I felt very suffocated, I have to say. This is my real truth. I was not very comfortable with that because I wanted to live a normal childhood like everybody else, all my classmates in school and things like that. I wanted the normal childhood. But this was very, very not possible for me because this is what basically was put on me from a very young age, not by my father, never by my father, interestingly, but by other family members. So this is one of the reasons why I actually ran away from Chennai to BITS Pilani because it is so far away. It's on the other side of the country. See, now it's very easy to travel by flight. In the time when I went, it's like sounds like ages ago, like 25 years ago or 30 years ago, actually almost 30 years ago, there was only a train that would go like 2 days from here to Delhi, and from Delhi to Pilani was another 6 hours by bus. So, and there was no mobile phones, there was no way of communication except by letter. And in the college and the dorm room, there was one phone for everybody. So we really were, I ran away as far away as possible. So that's the first stage. But in the college, something very fascinating happened. In the last year of my university, I had to choose some elective subjects. And for some reason, I don't know why, I chose some subjects called public health. And that was fascinating because the teacher of that course was somebody called Nirupama, Professor Nirupama, and she was very, very inspiring teacher and a very good teacher. So somehow I was attending a class and she was very inspiring to me. And at some point she knew about my father. And at some point she told me, Kausthub, why are you wasting your time studying all this with us in this college when you have the great gift of the tradition through your father and your tradition? Somehow this stuck, like it came like an arrow into my heart, not to kill me, but actually to open my heart. When she said that word, suddenly I thought, my God, this is what I needed to hear to open that lock. So my relationship with yoga changed. From that time, when in the last year when I had to do internship in my college, I tried to do the internship in Chennai so that I can be close to my father and start studying. So that is when my journey for yoga began, because of the words of this professor who told me this, who put this arrow into my heart. And that I'm very, very grateful for. And that is how it began. And then my journey with my father began with hardcore training without any books, because in those days there was no books that I could purchase. And even though we had like Yoga Sutra text printed, my father would never allow me to use the book. He would always prepare me without the book. I had to listen and repeat. And in the classes, he would teach me one sutra today, for example. The next day I would have to come. I would have to explain what I have understood. If I'm not understood, there would be no class. My father will go and say, go, remember what I taught you, come back. He would not repeat it.
Okay.
He would say, go, remember what I taught you and come back. It was very hard because other students, he would allow them to take notes, tape recorder, record and all that. I have some friends, colleagues of mine in Europe who attended some of the classes with me. They would record every class and I would say, why don't me record? No, I never understood at that time. Now I understand. So that's my journey.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So that's what I was wanting to know. And you openly, said it was how it was in the beginning of your, youth and when you in the college days, but how this eventual, adoption into the Guru Parampara, it happened. Very inspiring to know that. And today, you are one of the, though you with your humility, humbleness, you say you are not a Yogacharya, you are a student and everything. But, in the world, you have a very special position today because of the lineage that you represent and what you are also. It's not just because you are grandson of, Krishnamacharya, not just only because that you are Sri Desikachar's son. Of course, that is very important. But also as eventually you have imbibed the yogic values and the teachings of the parampara that you represent. So when you go to a world, especially in India, it's a different scenario. When you go to the West, to different countries, when you go, you're part of various academic bodies, various the alliances and all those things. You're part of that, even in the other countries. So when you go there, especially after the scenario that through BKS Iyengar and all, the yoga has become very welcoming there. So people, especially by the time you came up and go, already Western world would know BKS Iyengar, and you are his guru's grandson and his own kind of relative also. So definitely there would have been a kind of welcoming situation where you're looked upon as a celebrity there. So how do you handle such thing when you go there, the Western world, which is welcoming you as a celebrity? Even in India, for us, definitely you are a yoga celebrity. So when it comes, the kind of feeling that, oh, I'm a celebrity. So there are different chitta vrittis which can happen in the minds. So how do you handle this celebrity chitta vrittis?
There's two stages again to this answer. One, I would say, in the early part of my yoga journey, about which when I started traveling all the way about 20-25 years ago, um, perhaps you are right that this, I was still in my 20s and 30s, early 30s, for example. In that era, it's difficult to handle the kind of responsibility, the adulation, and other things that are coming on to you. And so we kind of get overwhelmed by that. And sometimes it gets a bit confusing. And I also realized that because of this overwhelming feeling, we make mistakes because we can't handle many of these kind of things. And especially because there's no guru for these kind of things. My father taught me yoga. He did not teach me how to handle this kind of things that are thrust. And it's also because I'm also a bit more accessible than many other teachers because I am quite open. So this put me in a lot of difficult circumstances, I have to say. And I would say that I made some errors of judgment, and at the same time, some other too much responsibility came as well at a time where I have not yet matured. However, it's changed in the last years, for example, the last decade or so, where I have learned to forgive many of these people, including myself, but not to forget the teachings that these circumstances have taught me. And my focus is much more about the gift of life that we have been given in this world to fulfill a dharma. And that is my focus now. So I don't care about two things that come to me, neither positive things nor negative things, because I feel if we are investing ourselves in the positive, we are equally putting ourselves in the risk of the negative. Because if we believe everything that people say positively, we will very easily believe also the people who are saying negatively. This and that are the dualities which we have to transcend. So I don't take either of that to heart, and my focus is only on the dharma of teaching and representing this tradition to the people who want to learn it in depth. I don't worry about anything else. Whether somebody appreciates me or somebody hates me, I really don't let that affect me. I will be grateful if somebody appreciates me, but I don't take that to heart that, oh, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful because some people appreciate me. Because if I do that, then if somebody does not appreciate that, I will take that also as a reality. And I don't want that, because my reality should be defined through my action, not through others' words. This is a big mistake many yoga masters are doing today. They're searching for appreciation from people, and that is setting up themselves for big, big disappointments. That's all I do now. I focus on the quality of work, the quality of my teaching, and let that manifest. Who is attracted to that will come. Who is not attracted to that will not come. And the world is a very big place. We can't teach everybody. We can't reach everybody. This is not our dharma. Those whose hearts we can touch, that's enough.
Wonderful. I think it's a very good clarity that you have, brought towards the community of yoga teachers. and through your own journey and experience that over the years that you have got. So this is the transparency that a yogi should have, the transparent spirit of a yogi should have. As you rightly said, whether somebody appreciates or whether criticism, taking it in a neutral sense. That's what is yoga is. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate, what Shri Krishna said. And very nice to learn, being you are like an elder brother to all of us, we young people in this field. So it's very nice to learn from you, and we are indebted to that learning. So
I'm still 16.
Yes. That's the beauty with yoga. It keeps you always ever 16. That is where challenges come to you. When you are ever 16, the way the others, we have in yoga all kind of people who come. The artha, the artharthi, the jignasu, and the jnanis. People who just come for their, in Kannada we say Sankata Bandaga Venkataramana. They come with troubleshooting mechanism to yoga. The ones the thing is all right, the body is all right, then mind goes wrong. So they come with some chitta vrittis. Some people come seeking materialistic, pleasures and plans with which they come to yoga today. Than those days coming today, many want to take up yoga as a professional career. In this aspect also, they are the artharthis, and of course jignasu, out of curiosity. I just want to know what it is. Everybody are doing yoga. How come this Kausthub is doing yoga, Subbu is doing yoga? So I want to know. That curiosity is something which is bringing many to. I think most in the Western countries, this kind of a people, they're not very serious about making a career or money with yoga, like what is the Indian scenario today, or nor they are only problem seeking, but more of the knowledge seekers which are coming. Of course, then people, the jnani who are for yoga as it is, who come for really that spiritual experiences of yoga. We have all kinds of people who come. So it is left, how we interact with them, how we deal with them, and how we take our relationship with them is a wonderful insight that through your journey you have given us. That's a wonderful thing. Also in today's scenario, if you see, Kausthubji, we have, as I rightly said, there are people who are in the tradition of yoga, the classical yoga, like you all what represent. It could be you, and we were speaking with Subbu yesterday, and Dr. Anandaji, and many people who are representing the lineage, at least for 2-3 generations. So that kind of people we have in the yoga field, and somebody like us who our father would have been doing something else, and or if they didn't even want us to get into the field of yoga. Having got technically qualified, being an engineer, everything. If I had to come and do yoga or go to spirituality, the family was against it. But against the current, we all had struggle in coming, but we qualified. Go do courses, eventually qualify, acquire knowledge, and we are coming into this field. So there are traditional yoga people. There are people who are professionally qualified people who are there. And also in the field of yoga, you see suddenly somewhere somebody comes and all of a sudden he says, I am a Avatara Purusha, a yogi, like that, with neither a lineage, a parampara, nor a shastric background, nor a professionally earned education. These people also sometimes come, and today, the media does good and bad. So both are there with such people. So how do you see this scenario, these 3 kinds of people? So people, like whom to take? Whether you would tell people you should take only the parampara people, the lineage, and then follow them, or even professionally qualified teachers who are there, you take them and follow them and practice. Or these sudden Swayambhu yogis who come also today. So what is your advice for the people?
Very simple. We have to respect diversity. Like I said, the same thing will not appeal to everybody. There'll be some people who would be attracted to the traditional system. There'll be some people who would be attracted to the professional system. There'll be some people who are attracted to these magical people who suddenly show up and suddenly disappear also. We have that also. So there must be no judgment of which one who should teach and things like that. It is something that people have to really deeply reflect in their hearts. And it is very normal for people to start somewhere and finally end up somewhere else. Because it's not always going to be so lucky, like for a person like me, or even for a person like you, who the first teacher you met became your Acharya. It's not going to be the case for many people. People may start with somebody, enter into the field of yoga, develop a little bit more, and find that that teacher that they are studying with is not able to give them the answer. Look for another teacher who is able to give them an answer. And this may also happen. We have to understand. But what I would suggest that we always remember, whether we go to a parampara teacher or we go to a teacher who is well qualified through like a degree or education certification or things like that, or these god men or god women who are showing up as teachers, there's no problem with that, as long as we do two things. One is, my father always used to say, when you are looking for a teacher, keep both eyes open. Very important to keep your both eyes open. When you find the teacher, you close one eye only. Because trust is very important, but it should not become blind belief. There must be an open communication that students should be able to have with their teacher. Ask sometimes difficult questions. Teacher, why are we doing this? Why are we not doing that? If some teacher says, shut up, this is how it has been done in our parampara, that's not really an acceptable answer. Because if you look at many classical shastras, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's the Yogi Yajnavalkya, whether it's the Shiva Samhita, Yajnavalkya Samhita, all have been through question and answer between student and teacher. So that's why we need to have that space where there's respectful questioning and there is respectful answer. This is very important. If that is not there in any of these three systems, that's not working. That you should be careful about.
And in the contemporary situation, you see, thanks to all the great masters of the Lord who took yoga to worldwide scenario, started teaching everywhere. So all over, yoga is not something today only what you can see in India. In fact, perhaps we see that more in the Western countries, and even the other Eastern countries are all picking up. The countries like Saudi Arabia and all, we see a lot of yoga teachers, yoga teaching, which is all picking up. And more than in India, in the recent time, yes, a lot of councils have come. The Ayush Ministry have taken a keen shape, and they are doing the certification board. The association, Indian Yoga Association, is taking shape and all those things. But so far, you see, in the field of yoga education also, it could be the Yoga Alliance or all those things which have been kind of dominating, and they have been bringing the standards. Of course, on one side we can say they brought some standards, of course, also we cannot deny that, but same time, don't you see that it is they who are dominating that science which belongs to India, that tradition which belongs to India? Don't you see that these people are too much dominating and trying to take over its ownership or something? Sometimes we see a lot of this patenting and all those things also happening. But in your capacity, you have been associated with many alliances which are abroad, yoga alliances also as a representative. So how do you look at this? At one side, you are part of the Indian Yoga Association or other yoga certification board and all, which the Indian government has taken keen step, and also you have been part of the Western yoga movement also. So how do you look at these both scenarios?
It's a very tricky situation, because it's typical of many of the Western organizations that they want to take over what is profitable into their control. And eventually they will weaponize it against the people where the tradition belongs. So they will weaponize yoga against Indian yoga people itself. And that is what they are doing. So in some way, I don't think that they really represent yoga. They represent like a small business of yoga, but not yoga as a dharma. So I'm stepping back from all kinds of association except the Indian Yoga Association, because that is where my heart is right now. Wow. Because yoga is something that has to be represented, governed, and standard set by India only, and not anything else. Like traditional Chinese medicine has to be approved by the Chinese medical doctors only. The same way yoga should be the standards of yoga should be set by the yogis from traditional schools of India and not modern schools, etc., from the West. Because if you look at many of these modern schools of yoga outside India, so far, many of them, not all of them, many of them are focused mostly only on physical exercises. I don't even want to call it asana, physical exercises, because asana involves breath, but they don't even take care of the breath. So they're all looking at gymnastics and things like that. And that's why they don't even represent yoga. So it's not these institutions, they are abusing the word of yoga. They are not in the field of yoga. They're doing it for business purposes. But for me, even if India is now creating this kind of a scenario with the government getting involved and Ayush Ministry and other things, I always want to remind them of one thing that we have to be very cautious about. Now, whether it's Yoga Alliance or the European Federation or Indian Yoga Association itself, it does not matter where they come from. Once such kind of an institution is created, the focus becomes the survival of the institution. And when the focus becomes the survival of the institution, you want quantity of people to go through that process. So you want to generate more and more yoga teacher training, more and more yoga teacher training, more and more yoga teacher training, so that you can certify and get some money, create big registries. We have 60 million members, we have 70 million members, we have 100,000 members, we have 1 crore members. That creates a huge problem. It creates a problem, which is that they're in the market, you are flooding it with so many teachers who will not get enough students for their survival. And in that way, that is a great disservice to these teachers who are graduating from such kind of programs, because you create an abundance of yoga teachers. There's thousands and thousands of yoga teachers now, but they'll all have like 1 student, 2 students, 5 students. And the corona has revealed this problem because all of them have to shut down. And that is the big danger of organizations and associations that gets created with big infrastructure, because then they want to churn out like factories teachers, and that is a great danger to yoga.
The focus should not go only to create more teachers, but to create yoga practitioners. Unfortunately, now every institute wants to claim them to, they want to claim that we do a teachers training program, 200 hours, 500 hours, and all those in India also, and especially in a place like Bangalore or Mysore, and all we see in Rishikesh and everything. Everywhere we have such yoga shalas which are claiming that, including we all are trying to do that. In fact, we institution where I represent also, we are all trying to do this of more teachers, whereas then it's that's where a problem happens of they not having proper scenario, organized way of taking their career ahead. Instead, the focus should be like, as I said, Shri Prashant Iyengar had pointed out a couple of days back. It should be the focus with all these, including maybe our Indian institutions and organizations, to produce more of sadhakas, more practitioners. Made you all other professions, like be a doctor and do yoga. You be a policeman and then do your yoga. You be a government officer. You be a teacher of a subject, or a sportsman. Like politician like Narendra Modi now doing yoga. I think that kind of a scenario, that even you can go in depth and learn the shastras and everything and apply in your life, not in your teaching, not in your classroom. Everybody want to apply this in the classroom and teaching and do whatever other things that they can do. I think people, with what I heard from you, the focus should be more on yoga for you, your life, than for teaching. It is you being than you making others to do. So I think this yoga day, we should take, move towards this, than producing more number of teachers. And what is happening? What is going to be their future?
See, that's why what we do, what I represent in our schools is, when we begin a training program, which lasts usually about 2 or 3 years, we don't begin another batch until we have finished this batch. So if I do a training program in Europe, for example, in Belgium or Brussels, until that batch is finished, I don't start another batch there. Because we need to not only train people, but we also need to engage in the relationship between the teacher and the student. So these things take time. So if there is a 3-year training program in Brussels that I start or in New Zealand that I start, I don't start a second batch until it's finished. So that these 3 years, I'm giving myself dedicated time and energy to that batch of students so that they get the best of me. Because they've invested their money, their time, they're leaving their families to come and study with me. I need to be there with my full heart, full energy, full capacity. So that is what I try to do, because for me, I always believe quality is more important than quantity. This is my view. I may be wrong, but quantity is not ever going to be replacement for quality.
And one last thing, what do you think as the greatest misconception in the field of yoga today happening?
What is the biggest misconception? There's not one, there's so many.
Huh?
There are so many. The greatest
one that if you want to point out as...
No, I think if you ask any other yoga teacher, they would say that yoga is perceived as asana is the biggest misconception. But I don't see that only as the biggest. There is a bigger misconception. The bigger misconception is that people think that anybody can be a yoga teacher. Yoga is a sophisticated science. It's a shastra in itself. So a very good sound intellect is needed to understand the philosophy of yoga, so that that philosophy of yoga can be represented in the practice. And that is the biggest misconception I see, which is that everybody thinks that anybody can be a yoga teacher if they can do some 20 to 30 asanas very flexibly. Therefore, you see that dancers are coming, sportsmen are coming, gymnasts are coming, but there's no intellectual capacity to understand philosophy, so they can't represent the teaching of yoga very well. So that's the biggest misconception I see, that anybody can be a yoga teacher. That's not right. It's like not everybody can be an army officer. I can't be an army officer because I don't have the height. I cannot be a pilot because I don't have the height. I cannot reach all the equipment in the plane. So there are certain standards that we have to meet. You can't say that anybody can be anything they want. That's the biggest misconception I feel. And I hope that this will change.
Also, there is one question from the audience who is watching that, which even though we are beyond time, I just want to ask you that. You represent, in fact, Krishnamacharya ji all come from a Sri Vaishnava lineage, where we say Ubhaya Vedanta. Both the Sanskrit literatures as well as Tamil Divya Prabandham are taken together. We say the Dravida Vedam, and then both are given equal reverence in the temples and in our tradition and all. Whereas in yoga, if you see today, though we have, you are from Tamil Nadu as well, so I'm particularly asking this question. So the respective states, they would have a lot of literature of yogic knowledge which are coming out. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we have the wonderful Siddha traditions, Tirumular's Tirumandiram, which has a lot of yogic wisdom from there. So don't you think we are only taking focus on the Yoga Sutras or the other Sanskrita literatures, and we are forgetting the local vernacular literatures which also have a lot of yoga inputs? And so should we make some attempts to bring those in terms of practice or research?
My view is absolutely. They have to be given a great importance, because there's such great teachings that are presented in the Nammalvar's teaching, for example, or Tirumular's teaching, who is the author of the Tirumandiram, etc. The problem, because this person has asked, why is it not given so much importance? The problem is very simple. It's political. See, Tamil Nadu has been ruled since the 1950s by only two parties taking turns, both of which are anti-spiritual. So somehow, because of this influence, the Tamil literature has been somehow given less and less importance. And this is a situation thanks to the geopolitical scenario of our state. Prior to that,
But rather, it is actually I was understanding that the government is promoting more of the Tamil literatures because they always say they are Dravidian and all those things than the.
as long as it is non-spiritual.
Okay.
In Madras University, they started removing many of the Tamil Vedas from the literature department, and now they want to replace it with Karunanidhi's Kalangir's compositions, which I'm not saying you should not do it, but don't remove the other one. That's what we should not do. So this is one particular reason which is geopolitical, and I think that is one thing which we can say as an answer to this question. The other thing would be that Tirumandiram is mostly going to be understood only by the people who know Tamil, especially the old Tamil, not the new Tamil. So that is also becoming more and more scarce because the literature Tamil of those days, very few people are able to understand. So that is another reason why this is not being propagated, but it must not be allowed to die because these are our cultural heritage that we have to protect and honor. We should not just protect statues, we must protect our literature.
Thank you so much, Kaustubji. And before I conclude, there are a lot to ask. Now it's not. It's after listening to you a lot until now. Only more questions are coming in. I think that is the problem of the mind. Again, a chitta vritti. So,
and I think you also received some questions from Divya, right?
oh, yes, I think where is my? I think I need to I need to look into that. So now towards the end, we need to before we wrap it out, we some rapid fire. I have the questions to ask you, which is nothing planned. In fact, I asked her some support. You should give me some questions to ask him. I don't know. I didn't see her reply. Whole day, people were calling one by one after the other, and some yoga programs or events. It was all there. Like we used to say, Ganesha and Subramanya. My name is Subramanya, but now I became a Ganesha, sitting at one place, and people come into the screen from various places. We have been conducting various webinars and yoga sessions. Anyhow, so what could be the questions for you? The yoga parampara.
Nammalwar.
Modern yoga.
Fake.
The Yoga Alliance.
One of the fake organizations.
Indian traditional yoga.
Something that has to be protected and strengthened.
Yoga teachers.
Great responsibility.
Yogi.
Huh?
Yogi.
Yogi. The one who has a coherence between actions, intentions, and words. Yan manasa dhyayati tad vacha vadati tad karmana karoti.
And Shastra, the Yoga Shastras.
They are the foundation for yoga. They are the foundation, they are the ultimate reference.
Your favorite asana?
Shavasanam, Shrantiharam, Chitta Vishranti Karakam.
In fact, tomorrow, that's what I'm doing. Actually,
the most difficult asana actually, because in Shavasana, you cannot go to sleep. You cannot relax. A lot of people think Shavasana is relaxation. It's not It's not at all. I often, when I do my practice, there is one section of the practice where I'm lying down and I am listening to some of the traditional chants of Swami Vedanta Deshika and others from our tradition. And I'm usually in the Shavasana position. Very difficult because you cannot go to sleep. And you cannot move too much. Because if you are moving, you are not a Shava. If you are sleeping, you are not a Shava. So it's very difficult.
Wonderful. In fact, tomorrow for the yoga day, as you know, we have the Ayush Common Yoga Protocol. So we try to make an effort of bringing various yoga teachers and each one leading one asana for the public. Tomorrow we have a television show which I'm coordinating. So I have been working with 30 different teachers and making them to do one asana, and everybody wants the toughest asana. And this Ayush Common Yoga Protocol, which all you people have designed and given, there is nothing very challenging asana. Maybe Vrikshasana is the one challenging asana there. Everything is very simple postures so that common people, everybody can do. It's at the common mass level. So now when I ask everybody to do this asana, that asana, everybody at the most I have to convince each one, come on, do this, do this, do this. And it was only Shavasana left, and I was I have taken that for me. And tomorrow morning for the yoga day, I'm demonstrating that for the public in television channels. So I'm happy that you also, chose that as your favorite asana. What is your favorite sport?
I am a cricket fanatic, boss.
No, I think we should have a yogi cricket match. Dr. Ananda, you and all of us playing together. I can play the umpire.
I just realized today, since I'm not the finisher, I'm not Mahendra Singh Dhoni, but I'm the 10th down. That means I'm Jasprit Bumrah as a batsman, not as a bowler.
The plan was earlier to make you the Dhoni, but tomorrow Guruji has taken over to be that, and the 21st of June we are going.
I would have been very happy if I was Dhoni, because my second favorite asana is Utkatasana. So important.
Okay, very nice. And Corona, yeah, that's one question constantly for everybody I'm asking. So I should not.
Conspiracy.
I think one different answer today I have got after all these 20 days of thing. And post-Corona.
Post-Corona will be a new world, a new way of life. There will be a new way of life.
The yoga day.
My father's birthday. Because I tell you, everybody is asking me, what are you doing special for Yoga Day? I'm often stunned by this, because for me, there is no day without yoga. So every day is a yoga day for me, boss. So for me, Yoga Day is always my father's birthday. And I'm so glad that the government chose 21st June as Yoga Day, because it is my father's birthday. And I'm so happy that the whole world is celebrating that day as Yoga Day. So it's the best gift that they can give to my father.
And you are remembering Divya Priya Bhavanani. Tomorrow happens to be her birthday also.
I know.
So many people, yogi friends of us who are having their birthday tomorrow. I'm sure it's the luckiest day. It's the world being celebrated as Yoga Day. And on account of this event, I would wish my humble pranams to the parampara of Sri Krishnamacharya, Sri Desikachar, whose birthday is tomorrow, and we have the representative of that wonderful lineage, Sri Kausthub Desikachar, who is with us, and to all who are going to celebrate your birthday today, an advanced happy birthday. And thank you, Kausthub ji, for this wonderful session. It was a true heart-to-heart talk that we could make, and a lot more to discuss, lot more to talk. Yoga field is today more becoming more happening, and we have a lot of issues, lot of things, lot of good things, lot of challenges, lot of opportunities that we have in the field of yoga. A lot to discuss when we sit across each other. And just an humble attempt that I started in this difficult situation, when there are no classes, when there are otherwise no engagements, how can we have a sat kalakshepa? The Shastra says kalakshepo na kartavyaha kshinam ayuhu kshane kshane. And so what good way that we can do it. So I thought this way, chatting with each other in informal way, lot can happen. They say a lot can happen over a cup of coffee. So instead of a cup of coffee, I keep a cup of kashaya and talk with yogis like you, and a lot can happen. Many people have been always telling me that it is more than a course for all this 20 days. We are having more than a course, that we are learning a lot from each session. I was very overwhelmed to see that people like you are also following some of the sessions. It was very overwhelming to see that though you are busy, you are following the interactions which I was having with others. I think that is the purpose which we could serve, and I'm sure the yoga fraternity will learn a lot from all these wonderful talks that we had. And once again, my humble pranams to you, humble pranams to Shri Desikachar, whose birthday we are celebrating. And tomorrow, as we all know, we are going to have the International Day of Yoga. Since morning, we're going to have many programs, many events. So two things that I would like to say, maybe if I can, Kausthub ji, if I want to continue two announcements. So by then, in case that you want to take a leave, also,
it's okay, no problem.
Thank you. So two announcements that I want to make. One is tomorrow in the same session, the Kaapi with the Yogi, tomorrow evening, we are going to have our beloved Guruji, Dr. Acharya Nagendra ji, who is pioneering the yoga movement today, the unifying force, bringing all the yoga institutions today. His role has been very significant in the declaration of the Yoga Day as well, and in formation of the IYA and all such things. So it is one who is successfully continuing the wonderful yoga university research and pioneering all that wonderful things which are happening in the field of yoga. So tomorrow is the day, the Yoga Day. We are going to have Dr. Acharya Nagendra Guruji with us. So don't miss it. 8 to 9 p.m. We are going to have his live interaction in this session tomorrow. Second thing, we have so many programs, the common yoga, protocol sessions that we have, various things. But one attempt which I have made, through this dedicated teachers, what we call as Yoga Mitra, the group of teachers from Bangalore and nearby in the state of Karnataka, 30 yoga teachers, some of them whom you have seen in this show, like Dr. Raghavendra Pai and others, Bharat Shetty ji from Mysore and all, we have come together to make the common yoga protocol, Ayush common yoga protocol, one synchronized video, which will be live broadcast, where each one of us are going to reach from our own respective yogashalas, our own ashrams, and reach out to the public through Sri Shankara TV. There's a spiritual TV called Sri Shankara TV. Mostly in the south it is seen, and also they have their YouTube live and Facebook live, and I will also share in all our pages. So 7 to 8 a.m. tomorrow, we have the common yoga protocol. This program is called Yoga Bhumi, where 30 wonderful teachers, the lead is Dr. Acharya Nagendra Guruji himself, who is leading the prarthana for us. And we have Dr. Nagaratna, Shri Raghuramji, and all who are participating in this wonderful yogic event. I welcome all of you to join with us. I would just quickly show you, short clipping of that program, what is going to, happen tomorrow. This June 21st. So that is the program. So Yoga Bhumi. So it's mentioning 15, but we have finally the count of 30 teachers who are presenting. Thank you all so much. So stay back with us. Continue these events tomorrow also. And once again, wish you a wonderful yoga day as well as the Father's Day. Both happens to be the same day for Kausthub ji. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Subbu.